Now, they did target two premier guys. They targeted Amari Cooper and Austin Hooper, and here's what Ron Rivera said about those negotiations.
What cut number?
Number 4. Sorry, Valdez.
We were talking about the substantial amount of money. But at the end of the day, he made a decision he felt was best for him, and we respect it. And that's a tough one. We'd have loved to have him as part of what we're trying to do. We believe he'd have been a great veteran presence in the room, especially for those young guys, the young guys that played last year and had success for this football team. So you felt good about having a veteran guy like that who's had success in this league as part of what you're trying to do. The Austin Hooper thing is we really weren't in it as it's been portrayed by a lot of people. But the truth of the matter is he set the market as far as tight ends were concerned, and that's something we most certainly weren't prepared to do. We wanted to get into it, but again, once that money climbed very high and very quickly for him, good for him. We decided to move on.
I guess the Redskins
so
they weren't comfortable paying $11 million plus for a tight end.
Right.
So
also, he's not a premier tight end. He's below the Travis Kelce's of the world. You know what I mean?
But in terms of what was available on the market, he was premier.
Yeah, but I don't know if I would want to give big money to Austin Hooper.
I mean, he didn't get big money. What did he get?
I think he got $11 million a year.
All right, well, that's not huge. You can deal with that. For a weapon that a young quarterback is going to use a lot, I think it's worth it.
Would you have been willing to do the trade that the Falcons did for Hayden Hurst?
I can't remember what that deal was.
I think they gave up
first rounder, right?
No, it was a second rounder.
Second rounder?
Okay, second.
Hurst is good.
Well, if the Skins had a second rounder to deal, they might have entertained it. But they're short
he went on
picks.
to talk about the tight end position. Can we play cut 9? So clearly they have done some small work at tight end by bringing in Logan Thomas and Rodgers. But these are not guys who are going to be, number 1 tight ends in the league. They're just not. So here's Coach Ron Rivera talking about the tight end position.
It's one of those things that in the system, you'd love to have a guy with Greg Olsen type of ability who's a primary ball catcher, a guy that goes out, find the hole, find the crease, find the seam, can separate when the ball's in the air at the right time. And that's one of the things that Greg Olsen did very, very well for us. Logan Thomas is a guy that we see some glimpses of that type of athletic ability. Pete Haynard, our tight end coach, felt very strongly about this guy's abilities, mostly because he thought he was a very smart and savvy football player. He's a tremendous athlete, and he's just learning and getting the position right now. Remember, he's a converted quarterback, a guy that has a skill set that's a little unique because of his understanding of the way offenses work. We brought in Richard Rodgers, a guy that's had success when he was in Green Bay playing with Aaron Rodgers. One of the things I got to know Aaron a little bit. And one thing Aaron always thought that this was the kind of a guy that was always a safety valve, a go-to guy that just knew how to get himself open and in position. And I can also say every time we played against Green Bay, Richard had a good game. So he's another guy that we just feel that could come in and compete.
So the Skins they're just gambling on upside, especially with a guy like Thomas, who has 8 starts and just 35 catches in his career. I mean, he's still, like Rivera said, learning how to play the position.
35 catches in his career.
I mean, he's very, he's still new to the position.
Yeah.
So he's going to get a lot of opportunities here unless they draft somebody else like in the 3rd round, and that guy gets a lot of playing time. Thomas is going to see a lot of snaps.
So let's get to the quarterback talk. Here is Ron Rivera talking about Kyle Allen, cut number 8, and why they chose to bring him in versus others.
I think it'll be a good competition. I really do, mostly because having been around Kyle for 2 seasons and kind of watched him interact with the quarterbacks that were in the room. He was in the room with a very strong personality in Cam Newton, and Kyle handled himself tremendously. And I really do think, and then we had Taylor Heineke, who was Taylor's understudy, and he was great with Taylor. So I just know what kind of person he is and just feel that he's the kind of guy that's going to go on this. He's not threatened by anything. What he's really concerned about is doing the best job he can. And if he ends up starting and being the guy, great, he'll be fired up about it. And if he's not, if he's in a backup role, he'll be fired up about that as well. I mean, he's the right kind of person for that room. And that's what I felt really strongly about, and that's why we were able to make the deal with Carolina and bring him in. I just think that he's got that real good sense about him that, being part of something is better than being an individual.
And I think that's why he was the perfect guy to bring in. If they brought in like a Winston or a Cam, guys that are just desperate to start and be the alpha male, that wasn't going to work in this particular situation where you're trying to see what you got in your first-round pick from last year. So I think Kyle Allen really was the perfect guy to bring in. Hopefully Haskins, though, can take that and just go and, not let it distract him and just, and blossom.
I said this before. He feels like Ron Rivera's Colt McCoy. Gruden had Colt McCoy around for years, liked him, essentially was a backup. He just liked him being in the quarterback room, knew the system, kept around Colt for a while. And to me, if I had to bet, I don't think Kyle Allen's going to emerge as the Redskins starter, but I actually believe Kyle Allen's going to be with the Redskins under Ron Rivera longer than Haskins.
That's not a bad bet. I don't think it's a bad bet. But if Haskins grabs the job and takes off, then you never know.
Two more clips I want to play. One was about Dan Snyder, and the other one is about whether they made a decision on the draft pick. Let's play the Snyder one first, and then you can interpret what he says about the draft pick, where, of course, they're drafting number 2. Cut 12 is whether Snyder's involved.
I probably talk with him daily to every other day. And really, it's about what we're doing, what we're planning on doing, what's happening, more than anything else. I think the biggest he's really asked is really that he just wants to be informed, more so than just, turning it over and then turning a blind eye. I think he did the laissez-faire thing where it was, he was hands off out of the way. So he just wants to know, and that's all it is. We talk through things. I've asked him for advice on certain things and certain issues, but for the most part, he's letting us do our thing. I mean, he'll call in and just ask how things are going. What do you think? Where are you guys now? More so than anything else. But like I said, the conversation is daily and to almost every other day. So it's been good. It really has. He's not here to impose his will or anything like that. He's here just to make sure we have the tools that gives us the opportunity to do our jobs.
You know what I'd love to know?
Wait till next year or the year after.
Right.
What I'd love to know is, okay, well, how does that compare and contrast to your experience in Carolina? You know what I mean? Like, what does that compare to what you knew when you were in Chicago or whatever?
Right.
That's what I want to know. I mean, that sounds fairly reasonable.
It's
I think it
reasonable.
sounds
When you own when you're writing checks for millions and millions of dollars, you probably want to check in with the business.
Yeah, I mean, if you own the entire operation, you are going to want updates and status reports.
And let's
that
be honest,
I understand.
We're not talking about like life-saving stuff here. We're talking about he owns a football team.
Right.
He wants to be involved a little bit. I get it. I mean, who wouldn't? If I owned the Redskins, I'd be calling the coach probably every day too and asking, "Hey, how we doing? What's going on?" I have no issue with that. The problem is when he starts saying, "Okay, this is what we're going to do." That's when it becomes a problem. And not that he doesn't have the right to do it, but that's when you just start to go in the wrong direction.
And who knows? He might be saying that.
He might. But you can't
I mean,
really kill
Rivera's
the guy for being interested.
Rivera's portraying Snyder as the perfect boss, and we know that's not the case.
Well, I mean,
Correct.
it's the honeymoon.
Yeah,
All
they
right,
haven't
let's
played
play-
one real game yet. Well, let's wait for
Right.
that to happen.
Let's play cut 14, and you can interpret whether or not they have locked down on the decision to draft Chase Young.
Well, I like to believe in the back of my mind, I know what we want to do. But you've got to go through the process. You've got to go through what we're going to go through for the next 5 days with our readings, with our coaches, and then what we're going to do the next 5 days after that with Kyle and I going through the board, resetting the board, looking at it, going through our own mock drafts. What happens if they do this? What happens if this happens? What if such and such calls? What are we going to do? So we've got to be fluid with that, most certainly. Do we try to make a deal to get back into the second round somewhere along the line as well? So there's a lot to think about. There really is. And again, having to do this virtually, what we've done is we've talked as a group the last 4 days about, what everybody needs to be aware of, what everybody needs to be ready to handle.
It's all code for we're going to draft Chase Young number 2.
Yeah.
Do you think they ever do? Do you ever think they do what we do on like our fantasy draft, where all of a sudden the pick comes to us and they panic?
Probably.
You know what I mean?
No, they
Like,
don't
no,
know.
there's a run on receivers. I better take one.
Teams have done it in the past. Wasn't it the Vikings that
Mike Tice.
completely
Yeah.
botched it and couldn't
Yeah.
get
Yes.
hard up to the podium in time? So it has happened, but I'm guessing now
99% of the time they
in
don't.
2020, they've drilled down on it and they've run every scenario.
So you think I know they're professional and they've had all million. So you think they really just are calm And when it comes to them, they go right by their board and they handle it very professionally.
95+% of the teams do. Yes.
Yeah.